We're here again on another episode of the Digital Pandemic. We have with us on the line Rand Fishkin. Rand is something of a celebrity in the world that Elad and I live in, and that is digital marketing. Rand was the founder of and CEO of Moz. Is it Moz or Moz?
Moz, yeah.
Moz, which is probably one of the most influential sources on the internet for all things SEO, and was especially known for his Whiteboard Fridays, which I personally found to be extremely entertaining, interesting, and insightful throughout the years. Rand is also the author of a book called Lost and Founder. From what I understand, it's a book to discourage more people from starting startups, which is probably a good thing these days. Most recently, Rand is the founder of a startup called SparkToro, which we will talk about in a minute. First question I wanted to ask is, what is SEO? No, I'm just kidding. What is SparkToro, actually? Why don't we start with that?
Sure. Well, first off, gosh, I hope Lost and Founder doesn't dissuade anyone from starting a company, because that would be horrifying and the opposite of my intent. I do help founders to reconsider taking venture capital and maybe consider some other ways of funding their business.
Sure.
I think startups and new companies is a great thing. SparkToro is in keeping with that theme. A tech company we just launched yesterday, actually. So we're having this conversation day after launch. Yeah, just kind of crazy. We are a market research tool specifically around audience intelligence. So figuring out the sources of influence and characteristics and behavior of any audience that you might want to reach on the web. If you are trying to market to architects in Los Angeles or chemical engineers in Canada or folks who are interested in skiing or software as a service founders, we can help you identify traits and characteristics of all those audiences so you can figure out how and where to target them on the web.
It's very interesting. What kind of data does that include?
It's pretty simple and straightforward. Let's say, for example, we'll use our SaaS founders, right? So software as a service founders. We basically will show you, once you perform that search, we'll show you the social accounts across 10 different networks that group follows, engages with, comments on, that kind of thing the most. We'll show you the websites that they visit, link to, share, engage with the most. We'll show you the YouTube channels they subscribe to. We'll show you the podcasts that they listen to, geographic distribution of where they're located, frequently used terms in their bios and profiles, words and phrases used in their shares and their online content, all that kind of stuff.
Very interesting. Would you say it's more for the B2B side or the B2C side of things?
No bias in that direction. Plenty of our customers right now are both. I would say it's nearly half and half.
Cool.
Let's say I've just signed up for it and run my remarketing. I've tweeted it to you because I found that it's biased. I found both you and Moz show up for remarketing.
Yeah. So a lot of people in marketing, right, follow Moz, follow me. I don't think that's any surprise, but you can sort of quantify it in a nice way, right? So you might say like, oh, is it all marketers who follow, whatever, Rand or Google or whatever, Danny Sullivan or something like that? SparkToro can be useful for quantifying to what degree any given audience follows or shares or engages with a particular person or publication. That's
very cool. So does that work in any way with, like, you mentioned PR specialists? So that also that works with job titles as well and like firmographic data?
Yeah. So you could, for example, say, my audience uses these words in their profile. That's one of the drop downs in the search bar. And then say, oh, they are chief financial officers, right? So I want to know what CFOs pay attention to on the web and their characteristics. Or you might say, oh, I want to find, I'm especially interested in, entrepreneurs. I'm interested in small business owners. I'm interested in people who are architects, whatever it is, right? So you can put any audience in.
Does that take the data from LinkedIn, from Twitter, Facebook?
Yep. So we cover 10 social networks right now and people's websites, right? So we don't just look at, if we can build a connection between an about page for an individual and their LinkedIn and their Twitter and their Facebook and their Instagram and their Reddit and their YouTube, right? All these different networks will pull from all those places.
That's very interesting. The burning question right now is, what's it like founding a company in the middle of a global pandemic?
And launching a product more accurately.
Yeah. It's not ideal. I mean, I don't think anything right now is ideal, right? It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
We are in a really good position relative to many other companies and startups. We've got some cash left in the bank. We are likely to be able to weather this, even if the recovery takes a year, we'll probably do okay. But it's definitely pretty dramatic. So we did an early access launch, our very first email, blast to our early access group, people who had signed up over the last 18 months as we've been developing this. We did that first blast at the end of February, and we had amazing adoption. The percent of people who converted to paid accounts was really extraordinary, and we were kind of blown away. We were like, oh my God, this thing's going to take off like a rocket. We sent another email for early access in mid-March and another one in late March. Those cohorts performed much more poorly. And these are, same list, same people, right? Just
different world.
Different world, right? Totally different world in March than February. And with the public launch, we've had a lot of people try the product free. We've had a few paid signups, but my strong suspicion is the next 6 to 12 months are going to be a great time to build attention and awareness. They're going to be a great time to help people for free. And then hopefully in the future, as a recovery happens, folks will say, hey, this SparkToro thing is really helpful and useful for me. I'm using it on a regular basis. I need more of it. I'm going to upgrade to the paid version.
How does that compare, I guess, to when you were running Moz or Mo? It's Moz, right? Moz. I guess you were kind of hitting your stride during the financial crisis of 2008.
Yeah.
Are there any similarities there? Anything that you've kind of learned from that you're going to be using now and that you think people should maybe pay attention to?
To be honest, I am not totally sure how comparable the two, recessions are. My sense is this one is much more dramatic and overarching, right? It reaches into every sector. It is a, fundamental sort of cessation of business. The United States just put out its job loss figures, right? And we are higher than we've ever been since the Great Depression in the 1920s. So it is very, very different from that 2008 recession. To be honest, so Moz launched its big product, its link index, on the day Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008. Right? So literally, and all the press dried up.
Dramatic events, I see.
Yeah, I know, right? Someone the other day told me, like, don't launch any more products or companies. Stop.
You can take it.
Yeah. You're clearly cursed. We honestly didn't really notice. Like that, we were in the online marketing world, which was taking off at the time. Google was obviously growing rapidly. The SEO field was growing rapidly. I think, it was maybe something like being in the field of online video and remote work in 2020. There was just massive adoption and growth. Tons of businesses were shifting their marketing online. I think the things that we did learn that worked well were keeping expenses low, staying profitable, being very nimble and willing to ride out a bad market. We invested when other people were pulling back. That certainly helped. And we built up organic marketing channels, right? So content, SEO, email, video content was huge for us. Whiteboard Friday, that's sort of when it started taking off, was 08, 09. All those things meant that Moz was able to grow, 100% year over year, 7 years in a row.
And you do talk in your book about layoffs and really kind of the stress that you took when that happened. And I believe this is happening across many companies nowadays.
Yeah, and I think a lot worse now, right? Because when we did layoffs, it was everyone, I think to a person, had a job within 3 months, right? So that was not particularly comparatively not very painful versus right now.
Yeah.
And how do you think, as employers, we can really try and somehow approach that differently or more empathetically to some extent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a great time, depending on the country that you're in, right, and what's being offered by governments, to look very carefully at those programs and to optimize the structure of any kind of layoffs or furloughs that you're going to do, such that people can maximize their benefits and cushion their losses. So, the United States, unfortunately, is not very generous compared to most of the rest of the world's countries. But, for most of Asia, for Australia, UK, a lot of South America, there's more robust programs, and you can do some optimization around how you do the furloughs, how you do the layoffs, such that folks are well protected. I think one of the biggest things, if you're doing layoffs in the United States, is to find ways to maintain your employees' healthcare coverage, because loss of healthcare here it's a death sentence for a lot of people and a bankruptcy sentence. And so being able to provide for your team, even if that means cutting things deeper in the short term to be able to maintain those, I think that's hugely important. There have been a few companies that have done layoffs really thoughtfully, and I think there's some good examples out there. I just shared one on Twitter the day before yesterday. I'll try and find the name of that, but it's a shit show. So yeah, there's no two ways about it.
What's incredible about this specific shit show, I was thinking about that today, is that I don't think I've ever experienced a time in my life where, you can really say everybody's going through the same shit show at the same time. Like, you're going through your American shit show. We have our Israeli shit show. There's the Italian shit show, the Chinese shit show, and it's like, it's everywhere, man. And it's at the same time. And I mean, I was just thinking about today, like everybody's going to have their, how everybody has their, where were you on 9/11 story? They're going to be like, where were you during the coronavirus? And basically people's life stories are going to be basically like, and then Corona happened,
Yeah.
And every single job, every single resume and every single story, it's basically going to be like, and then Corona happened.
The remarkable thing to me, right, the thing that I think is in most stark relief is how it does not matter how competent, high quality, or wealthy your private sector is, right? That in this crisis, the only thing that matters is government bureaucracy competence and effective leadership. And that's
social
right.
Social cohesion.
That's the difference between countries and regions that are doing really well and ones that are doing poorly, right? The countries that have managed this well, right? Or South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, to a certain extent, Japan, Germany. I think for all its faults, I would actually say Italy is doing a remarkable job considering how hard they were hit before anyone knew anything about this.
Sure.
Right? They got like the short end of the stick, the shortest end of the stick, in my opinion. And their healthcare system is pretty extraordinary. Their social cohesion, their government's willingness to work across party lines shocks me. They've had like very contentious politics, but they sort of come together in a crisis versus the United States, where this crisis is causing more political strife and enmity than ever before, right? So, yeah, it's tough. Well, what I hope is that voters, in democracies at least, recognize how valuable it is to have a competent government and try and elect competent people in the future. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but
it's interesting that this crisis is hitting us at this sort of peak of, fake news and political division, which, is happening worldwide. It's not exclusive to the United States. The polarization and the fake news and all that. It's interesting that we're experiencing this crisis kind of in at the height of that time, and I'm curious to see if that turns the page on that period and kind of wakes people up to say, all right, we're all in this together. Let's cut the bullshit. Let's stop fighting. We actually have bigger problems than the social wars and the culture wars and all this bullshit that people are fighting about. we have to fight pandemics, right? Or will it actually just kind of drive people more apart? And I don't know. It's interesting. I hope it grows people up,
Yeah. I mean, it seems so far like the answer to that is it depends where you are.
Yeah.
Some places have come together in extraordinary ways. Italy's political parties working together is a shocking example. The United Kingdom, right? I mean, gosh, I think a lot of conservatives and liberals like in the UK, we thought they were similarly polarized to the way it was in the US, and it's not turning out that way. But then you have the United States. I don't know what the situation's like in Israel, but the US is very...
It's pretty divided here as well, but probably not as bad as it's been in the States for the last 4 years or so. I think it's particularly vicious there lately, is my impression of it.
We have a uniquely bad cultural structure for a crisis like this, right? Because individualism and, whatever personal liberties are sort of elevated as much more important than social cohesion and helping your neighbor and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, here in Israel, it's we're kind of used to crises. We've gone through multiple wars every few years or so, and people are pretty much used to obeying orders. Like when you hear the siren, take cover, and people kind of know how to hunker down and do what's needed to be done at the moment. So yeah, I think in that sense, we're also, I think we've pretty much flattened the curve. We're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel here. And yeah, it really does require people to kind of just put, the needs of everybody else, of society above their personal needs, and which is very, there's a lot of pain. People are really, really struggling. People don't have work. If you can't work from home, if you can't, if you're not in high tech, then you're really, really struggling right now. And people are, they're staying at home. They're taking care of their kids. They're doing what they need to do. It's kind of amazing when you think about it.
Yeah, no, it is quite remarkable. And the United States, I don't want to make us out to be too terrible or overly bad, but I think we have kind of, a very divided country, right? So 50% of Americans are sort of, yes, the virus is real. Yes, like we need to stay at home. Yes, we have to, listen to our local authorities. And then we have 50% of the country who's sort of like, everyone grab your guns and go protest in front of the Capitol, right? It's not 50-50, but you get my point, right? We sort of have this, not even subculture, but mainstream culture that is very anti-government, anti sort of help other people, everyone for themselves. So that's tough. But as businesses and as marketers, right, I think you can recognize this situation for kind of the tough situation that it is, and then do things to compensate, or you sort of drown in
the noise.
Just the tide of hopelessness. And it is hard. Like, I have talked to a lot of business owners of all kinds, right? Small businesses, restaurateurs, SaaS businesses, subscription companies, tech companies, everything. There's no one who doesn't recognize how painful this is. I think that's the one thing I've noticed among entrepreneurs is they are conscientious of the pain people are going through. And I think that makes you a good business
connections. Entrepreneurs are you kind of feel it. I feel it. I talk to my clients. I talk to a lot of people. You get out there. You're talking to people. You're talking to potential clients. You're talking to people you advise. You're talking to colleagues. You're kind of always out there as an entrepreneur. You need to kind of keep your finger on the pulse, and you kind of get the sense of it. I think earlier on, it's nuts. If you are an entrepreneur, you kind of have to be optimistic by nature. I'm optimistic. I do believe that, we're going to see the end of it, hopefully sooner than later, but at some point, and I think it's going to be okay. I think in that sense, it's different from 2008, where, 2008's recovery was very, very slow. I kind of hope that this is going to be a fast recovery, in the sense that there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. So people, who might have been about to buy a car are saying, "Hey, let's ride this thing out. Let's see how it turns out before we go out and buy a new car." And I think that once it's over, obviously there are going to be a lot of people who are looking for work, and there's going to be a lot of businesses that go under. But I think there's also going to be a lot of travel that needs to get done, a lot of events that start to happen, a lot of weddings that have been put off. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of pent up spending that kind of comes onto the scene all at once. And hopefully that might result in like similar to like a seasonal bump, like you would see, in the summer or over Christmas or something like that, where, I'm sure you'll see like kind of like Black Friday type sales and stuff like that. So I think I do kind of expect a little bump. Hopefully that'll kind of drive it. But yeah, I mean, I think.
What's your sense on, I was just asking about trends that you think will persist through this, right? So in terms of like remote work, people shopping more online, more delivery.
That's fascinating. I've been thinking about that nonstop. And I keep reading these, I don't know, I don't even read them, but I keep seeing these headlines from all the business newspapers and magazines saying, remote work is here to stay. Remote work is not here to stay. I think nobody knows. Like, I think that there's a lot of companies that are doing remote work unsuccessfully. And I think that they're going to go back to not doing that as soon as they possibly can. And I think that especially for smaller companies, they might be enjoying it more and saying, hey, we can keep doing this. But I don't know. I really don't know. And I don't think that it's necessarily a given that remote work is here to stay. I personally, I like having somewhere to go. I like, having a work culture. I'm here at home with two small kids, and I like being able to go out, get dressed, have coffee, and kind of go somewhere every day. Not every day, maybe. And maybe we don't need to be doing it all at once. And it might make sense for us to collectively decide maybe not to all come to the office at the same time, and maybe not leave the office at the same time, because traffic sucks. But I'm pretty sure that people are going to want to come back to an office, at least in some sense. I don't know if WeWork is going to survive this. I don't know if Airbnb is going to survive this. I think e-commerce is going to continue, because my sense of e-commerce is that there are a lot of people, and that includes people, in their 30s and their 40s that just never got into it. And for them, it was always a little scary to, just put the credit cards on the internet and trust that it comes in.
I mean, we had never, my wife and I are very tech savvy, but we've never done grocery delivery till COVID.
And so I think those are the kind of things that are because I think those are the kind of things that when you try them and they are convenient and you do enjoy them, then you're going to keep doing that. So I do believe that the bump to e-commerce is going to continue. And I think that traditional brick and mortar is going to suffer for that if they haven't till now gotten around to.
I don't believe so, Gabriel, because I do think that store owners are now transitioning to that kind of split e-commerce brick and mortar. I've seen all the small store owners around here that have set up some sort of online shop, worse or better. And they're all doing these kind of solutions, to provide whatever you need. So I think that's going to stick. And I think that's going to stay. And that's part of people being now used to order things online. Unlike Rand, we actually went in the opposite direction, because there's no shippings now for the actual groceries. You need to order 2 weeks in advance. So we actually switched back to going to the grocery store. I've downgraded now.
Yeah. In that sense, I think there's some things that are going to stick. I think some things that, just might be a little bit less sticky. But I think we'll see. What I do believe is that there's going to be some fundamental change. Like, I think that this is going to be looked back like as one of those tectonic shifts in world history, in the sense that, we're going to be experiencing the repercussions of this, for probably at least, for decades.
Yeah.
In the way that, World War II gave way to the baby boom and then, hippie culture and the counterculture. And I think that this might really just kind of change the course of civilization for a while.
Yeah.
At least.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it's hard to say what that is now. My sense, if you are an entrepreneur, a founder, business owner, someone who's helping with marketing, how do you think you take advantage of these things or help people execute on these trends?
That's a great question.
I have questioned how much I wait and see And marketing, in my opinion, has historically been a wait and see approach. Like once something starts to get traction, once a platform gets traction, like, okay, now go market in it. Don't put all your eggs in the Google Plus basket before it's big, right?
Sure. I work with my clients on kind of how we're going to get through this thing. And it's a great question. I think one of the first conversations that I've had with each of my clients, once we kind of all understood that this is going to be a big thing, is just sort of, okay, we need to put the plans in the trash can right now. So whatever we thought was going to happen this year isn't going to happen. I think one of the most important things that us as marketers, as creatives, can help businesses with is with, I guess, radical open-mindedness, in the sense that usually as marketers, it's easier for us to imagine things. I work with a lot of tech companies, which means that most of them are run by technical founders. And so a lot of the times I need to inspire and say, hey, listen, like this is something, I know this hasn't worked before, but there's no reason why it can't. And so I think that's one of the things that I think marketing leaders can do is inspire and say, imagine more, imagine how this can work. Imagine how you can help. Imagine how you can go and create, a new community. And there's a lot of skepticism out there. And I think this is a great time for just kind of sincere optimism of saying, listen, things are really, really bad. So what's the worst that can happen? Let's give it a shot. Let's try to do this thing. Let's try to build this thing. Let's put our best foot forward and see what we get out of it. So that might sound a little cheesy, but that's my approach, I guess.
I'd also think to Rand what you've written about reading the room, about being able to see what your audience is really kind of working through, and really trying to pair that with that kind of creative, with that kind of new approach, and really approaching them in the right way, in the right manner.
Yeah, I think that people are more sensitive now than ever before to the style in which marketing is done. And I think the wrong types of marketing can turn people off really quickly, right? If you are not thoughtful about your messaging, if you're not thoughtful about timing, if you are exploitative, I've seen a few, I don't know if you guys have seen them, but like a few sales emails and a few ads that really rubbed me the wrong way and made me feel like the tone deafness was the loudest thing. And I have this sense that for business owners, for marketers who are able to do kind of three things, right? One is, yes, read the room, like have good internal awareness of how things will be perceived by an audience, by customers. I think that is hugely helpful. Those just instincts, right? Emotional instincts are excellent right now. I think the second thing is having good, close conversations, like a combination of interviews, customer one-to-one types of interviews and data, meaning, that could be from surveys, it could be from sales data, it could be from your website, a funnel, right? Showing you what's still working and what's stopped working. And then the third thing is an ability to change course quickly. Right? If you can move on a dime and tell your team, hey, we are now in a whole new world. And so we're throwing out our 2020 and 2021 plans. And the new plan is experiment with this. How soon can we get that done? Right? I don't know if that's marketing. It could be a marketing channel. It could be a new product, could be new positioning, could be new messaging, might be a whole new way of serving your audience. But that ability to turn quickly, which I think early stage companies have and smaller companies have a little better than larger ones, I think those three are superpowers right now.
I think we've seen two great examples of that. We've seen one, the changes that Zoom has implemented right on the spot. They got that backlash of about their security and all that. So they weren't as quick, but they were able to push that over the past month or so. Another one is coming from Gong, a smaller company, a startup in the, what would be the right term, Gabriel? Sales
revenue intelligence.
Revenue intelligence.
Yeah.
So they were able to actually ship out a new product. I believe it was in under 2 weeks.
Wow.
And really drive that for sales teams that are now working remotely, and be able to replace that peek over the shoulder and talk to Ted and see what's his sales calendar looking like, and bring that online. Really being able to adapt and make these changes is uber important, and it goes beyond marketing, I believe. Yeah.
That actually brings me back to the question you had about the changes that are going to be, I guess, more permanent. I do believe that this will result in some sort of acceleration of digital transformation that's already been going on over the last 20 years. But I think that this is kind of going to be that thing where it's just like, okay, yeah, we can't not do this anymore.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
I have this question written down for you, Rand. It's unrelated to anything we've been talking about.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
Elad and I, at least, we consider you a digital marketing celebrity. Do you ever get stopped in the street? Do people ever recognize you? Like, hey, it's the Whiteboard Friday guy.
Yeah, it happens on occasion. Yeah, I would say maybe I used to, obviously pre-COVID, travel a lot, and I would say, yeah, once or twice a trip, somewhere in New York or Chicago. Happened to be once in Valencia, Spain.
On a train in Amsterdam, one SEO kidnapped you for an interview on the train.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I hopped on a train with my wife. We were going back to the airport to catch our flight back from a digital marketing event back to the airport. And yeah, this guy was like, "Oh, I have my video equipment. Will you sit down with me for an interview?"
One of the leading SEOs in Israel. So yeah, that was quite an accomplishment by him for the community here in Israel, at least.
Yeah, that was fun. I think Geraldine was a little traumatized. She was like, "What the heck is going on?"
Israelis come on hard, yeah.
Another kind of unrelated question. So, I mean, you dealt a lot with SEO when you were in Moz.
Yeah.
Do you still get your hands dirty with SEO, or are those days behind you?
Let's see. I would say I, big picture, get my hands dirty a little bit, but in terms of practicing and trying to do consulting or anything like that, no, not really.
So where would you say SEO is at as a discipline? My sense is that it kind of peaked around 2016 and it's kind of been going down since then. Is that just my sense, or is that something real?
That's your sense.
I have not seen that, right? So there are more practitioners of SEO. There's more traffic being sent from SEO than ever before. Part of that is coronavirus, right? And everyone being stuck at home and searching for everything. But I think there's also two things are going on, right? One, there's more competition and sophistication than ever before, which leads to a world in which opportunity is diminished, at least for folks starting out. And then the second big one is Google themselves taking a tremendous amount of opportunity. And I've obviously written about that a bunch on the SparkToro blog and used some data from clickstream providers to show how there's a lot less opportunity in many sectors, right? Sector after sector. Google is entering the market, competing directly with publishers, working really hard to make sure that no one can get a click, that only Google benefits from SEO. That sucks, right?
Do you think there's an antitrust case to be made against Google?
Let's see. I think depends on the country and the laws, but in the United States, I don't have the expertise to say whether there's a case, but I certainly feel that Google is abusing its monopoly position. Whether our laws are structured in a way that can hold them to account, I don't know. But is it happening, right? Are they using their monopoly to unfairly compete in other sectors? Hell yes, obviously.
Let's talk a little bit more about SparkToro. How did that come about? Where did you get the idea for that?
I mean, I helped, during my years at Moz, I helped a lot of companies and startups try and do market research, right? Understand their audience and where to reach them. And especially in cases where search was not a good channel, right? Where essentially people don't search for every product that you might want to sell them. There's some products that people aren't aware of, or they don't know they have the need, or they're solving it in some way already, but maybe not the best way.
And in a lot of those, true for startups.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So in a lot of those cases, you have to build demand. You can't just serve existing demand through search. And in those cases, a lot of the time we would spend months or even years trying to identify the sources of influence that would actually reach the customers that we wanted to reach. So I was on the board of a company called Haiku Deck, which was basically a very low cost, simple solution to make more attractive versions of PowerPoint slides, right? It was helping and it was especially used by like teachers and real estate professionals and by professional coaches, like life coaches and that kind of thing. All these groups, a lot of religious organizations use it. But reaching those audiences, like finding, hey, what are the sources, what are the podcasts that life coaches or priests or real estate agents listen to? What are the YouTube channels they subscribe to? What are the websites they visit? It was interminably difficult. Like what we do is a lot of interviews, a lot of surveys, a lot of anecdotal data. But the best source of that data was always finding a set of our customers, right, or our target audience, going and like extracting data from their public social and web profiles.
Yeah, I do a lot of that manually.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. You go to someone's Twitter account, LinkedIn account, Facebook account, blah, blah, blah. And then you look at all the things they subscribe to. Oh, what pages are they following? What accounts? Yada, yada. And then you try and figure that, like you try and grab that for 100 people who are your target customer and then do the overlap between them. Well, that is doable, but it takes months. It is just interminably challenging. You could build your own private crawler to gather that data, right? And try and get around, all the pain in the ass processes that are part of that. But Casey and I basically sat down and were like, how come this product doesn't exist? Like what? Why hasn't someone made one of these? There's so many social listening tools and social media, attention platforms and blah, 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 blah. We don't really have a way to do this. Like it's not influencer marketing. It's not social media marketing. It's not content marketing. It's market research.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't exist. So that's where the idea came from.
It's fantastic. Well, it sounds great. I'm starting to play around with it and hopefully I'll be able to make some good uses of it. And I'll give you some feedback as I see stuff.
Love that. You guys, this has been super fun. Really enjoyed talking about this stuff. I think one of the things that's definitely true in this super scary time is that, sharing it with other people is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what where this came about is where, Elad and I were just like, hey, we're going through this together. Other people are going through this thing. We should just get out there and just talk, about what we're feeling, what we're seeing. I think that's interesting. I think at the very least, it'll be therapeutic for us.
I certainly hope so. It has been for me too. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Thanks so much, Rand.